Hey, what's up everybody, it's Lids, and we're back for some more Gwent, and today we're playing more standard mode to revisit a deck that I accidentally put an extra card into last time, which means a deck that was already great we can now make even better. So let's go give it a look. So today we'll be revisiting the Nilfgaard status deck that we played recently, because I will readily admit I rushed making that deck and I accidentally threw in an extra card. But that's good news for this deck, because that means that we have more provisions to work with than we did before, allowing us to make this deck even stronger. We have so many ways to play and draw extra cards that I switched us from Tactical Decision to Imposter, so technically we lost a little bit of consistency, but that was never really a big issue, and instead we get a whole lot more control and point potential. And with the extra provisions that we now have, since we no longer have an extra card, I replaced Mata with Ard Feainn. That way we still have a way to get more consistency because this does give us some thinning, but unlike Mata, this can give us a lot of statuses, which supports the archetype that we're trying to build around. I also got rid of Roderick because, again, we were usually playing almost all of our cards, so he didn't feel necessary. I also dropped the Squirrel because with the extra provisions, we no longer need to have as many 4 provision cost cards. And I dropped the Alba Spearman for the same reason. With those extra provisions, I added Cadavarine for more poison and a way to create a copy of one of your opponent's strongest cards, as well as Vanhemar to give us another way to destroy our opponent's cards. We had just enough provisions to sneak in another Thristy Dame, which is obviously a huge card for us with all of our statuses to support it. And then I also added one of the new Imperial Marine cards, so that if we do get stranded in round 1 without one of our big gold cards, we can use this to help get it toward the top of our deck. And if it's already at the top of our deck, then it becomes a boosting engine, making this a versatile and more provision-efficient way to make up for some of the consistency that we sacrificed elsewhere. It's also a card you can play turn 1 on blue coin. Other than that, it remains unchanged, so we still have some huge gold cards like Masquerade Ball, Emhyr, and the Admiral for tons of statuses, the Catriona for even more poison, which is especially good when combined with Philippe, and then battle stations to spam even more of our bronze cards. So there's a look at the deck, this time with 25 cards. Now let's go see it in action. Alright, so going up against Northern Realms here, and they'll go first. Okay, so we draw into Masquerade Ball and our Defender, Cadavarine, but otherwise not any of our big gold cards here, so this is not great for round 1. Pellar could help us purify a Defender or Veil. I'm not really sure how likely that is. It's not like they have Crystal Skull or anything like that, so we might dump you. And the Admiral is certainly a much bigger card. And the King Cobra, I mean, Fangs the Empire is basically just a better version of that, and we can also get a little bit of additional poison with the Servant, so maybe you're not strictly necessary. I think we have enough poison here. Okay, Griffin Witcher. Are they a dedicated Witcher deck? So we could lock you, which is not a bad thing to do, because you are going to be worth 1 point per turn. But if they are a dedicated Witcher deck, then Archgriffin is technically a Griffin School Witcher card, so that might be the best target. But I suppose we have enough Van Moorlehem Servants that we could still get a little aggressive with this. Okay, well, the Hawkmail, they're pretty committed to using it, apparently. Now at 9 power, suddenly you're a better card to go after with Toll Removal. So, I mean, we could use Cadavarine to create an extra copy on our side of the board as quickly as possible, and then we'll finish it off with the Fangs the Empire on our next turn. Or maybe Van Moorlehem Servant to pass off that poison onto something else. Okay, there's Vanhemar. They're definitely an Archgriffin deck. I think so. We'll use Vanhemar to help protect it. That means, yes, having the Pellar would have been useful. We technically do still have enough poison to remove you if we were to use the Admiral along with Fangs the Empire. We put the poison on you. That is a lot of points on the Admiral. That is actually kind of tempting, to tell you the truth. We could use the Admiral as mostly an engine. Also pretty good Imposter target as well. But yeah, you know what? Yeah, it does mean that we're only going to get 1 status out of this, but I think we're still okay with that. Also get out Ard Feainn early, which is nice. First status is locked. So basically, he's an engine, but not control. It's 3 points per turn, unless we hit you with the Griffin Witcher, which I deliberately did not do because I didn't want to break your shield, because that reduces the value on the Admiral. We're going to Heatwave Ard Feainn. Wow. Okay. I mean, that's a pretty huge commitment. Now, at this point, I think we just drop the Imperial Marine, put it in flanking position, and what is our most important card here? Probably Emhyr. Honestly, with our current hand, with all these bronzes, battle stations would be pretty nice, but I think we have to act on the assumption that this is more so set up for future rounds. Again, deliberately not going to use this, because I want to keep you with a shield, because that's 1 extra point per turn on the Admiral. And this could turn into extra points per turn on the Marine as well. And I might even pass on our next turn. Okay, it's Erland, so yeah, more of the Witchers. That's not so surprising. The slightly surprising thing is that they're using it so early in round 1. But I think we might just pass here. The Admiral gets boosted. That means they have to play one more turn. That means they'll actually be 2 cards down in round 2, so they presumably would not try to push. And they've already used Erland, which was potentially one of their win conditions for one of the later rounds. Yrden, okay, sure. I mean, I guess it's kind of nice to get rid of that this early. Again, that was potentially a round 2 or round 3 win condition. Okay, so we did do enough to draw into Emhyr there with the support of the Marine. And we also draw into Thristy Dame and Philippe, so we have huge Masquerade Ball synergies. That's great stuff. You also work very well with the Thristy Dame. Getting more poison is not a terrible thing. The double Servant still feels like that's a bit of overkill. Okay, Pellar, I mean, we know they've already committed their defender, so that's not a huge deal, although this might be our throwaway here. It probably is for that reason. Technically, we have 2 throwaways if we really want to, but I think we'll just dump you, because that's all we need for round 2. Okay, we draw into King Cobra and Van Moorlehem Servant. I feel like we can do better, especially with 3 mulligans. So let's dump one of you. The Hunter, I mean, yeah, we still have our leader ability for lock, but otherwise we have more access to poison than we do lock, so maybe it's not a terrible thing to have some options there. The Pikeman, I mean, that's a whole lot of bleed setup, which could make the Thristy Dame from this and Masquerade Ball go absolutely crazy. Is that reason enough to stick with this? I mean, I'd love to see the Catriona, I think, or battle stations, but maybe we can settle here. And why don't we begin with our defender, because didn't they use Heatwave very early? Yeah, so that is the downside of them for having used that Heatwave so aggressively. It's kind of reckless, I would argue. Because now we can much more safely, I mean, I guess they're not going to Heatwave Masquerade Ball, so maybe we didn't need the defender. But now we can keep our Thristy Dames and all of our other big cards safe from whatever other control they might have. Yeah, they'll go Onager. Now, that is a very dangerous card if we allow it to stick around. So that's not a bad thing to lock with Van Moorlehem Hunter. We could always use our leader ability on this if we'd like to, but I think we do this. Be a little bit patient, because they need to at least have something on the board with an order before this becomes a threat, and unless that thing that has an order also has Zeal, we'll at least have 1 turn to react to it, and most of our control comes from deploy abilities or things that will have Zeal once we get a vampire on the board, which we are about to do. So I think we can afford to build a little more slowly with Masquerade Ball. Okay, Selective Mutation. That's definitely slow. And we would like to get Emhyr and this Thristy Dame down pretty quickly, as well as Philippe and, I mean, both Alba Pikeman as well. The best way to get 2 cards down in 1 turn is Emhyr, and then if we're really lucky, when we use this to play Thristy Dame, we'll draw into battle stations. We could use that to get both Alba Pikeman down on the same turn. And this will give us 2 rounds of poison in 1 turn. We'll use that to get rid of Onager. I mean, technically we could get the Pikeman as well, but I think we want Thristy Dame because we're about to apply some stats. It is battle stations. Okay. Well, could not be better. So we will take it. All right, let's put these guys in the range row because we're getting pretty crowded in the melee room. We do still have more things we want to put there. We'll do that. So now, maybe next turn it is battle stations for the double Alba Pikeman. As tempting as it is to get Philippe out here as quickly as possible, what is better? 1 Philippe with Zeal, we could immediately lock that, or double Alba Pikeman. Don't have Zeal, but that's a lot of statuses for 2 Thristy Dames. I think that is probably too good of an opportunity to pass up. And we draw into the Catriona. Oh my goodness. Okay, well, in that case, obviously we want these guys in flanking position, but does not get much better than this. And that's one of the reasons why using the Admiral in round 1, it didn't go exactly according to plan. Yeah, he turned into a decent engine for us. He won us the round, but didn't really have the control that we were looking for. But we have so many strong cards that it didn't really matter because we still have so much firepower remaining. Okay, now this guy's a little tricky because since he can transform other cards, he can remove their statuses in the process, so that it is a little bit of a counter to our deck. Technically, we could still do a lot of stuff to him very quickly. Potentially lock with Moorlehem Hunter might even be the best choice. In fact, although it might not seem like we need to do this, it is very important that we shut that down as quickly as possible, because once they start creating extra copies of it, it just gets a little bit out of control. So now we also just go crazy, applying a whole bunch of bleed. Now, I am going to put 2 turns of bleed on some of these guys, because then when we use the Catriona, we have some stuff that already has statuses on them. I mean, that shouldn't really be an issue since we have Emhyr, I suppose. We have so many things here that it's hard to pick. Now, on this occasion, we might even just go leader ability to lock you. So Philippe goes straight to poison when you have this many statuses, and that's actually kind of a bad thing on this occasion because we only have access to 1 poison on this turn, which means we can't immediately shut you down. I mean, we could go Moorlehem Servant, actually would work as well, but I want to get some of these other engines down and want to use Moorlehem Servants and Fangs the Empire as finishers. So I think it is probably Philippe, or technically you can gain additional charges. I think it is still Philippe, though. So I don't think the charges are going to be that much of an issue. You're saying leader ability here. Then let's go and poison you. Just apply a bunch of these. Okay, Keldar, that is also a relatively big card, one that we'd like to shut down quickly here. I just admittedly just clicked on this for the poison because it was tied for the biggest unit. That's technically not locked, so this one is a little bit better to go after. But now I suppose we'll get the Catriona going, and the flanking component is, well, I mean, I guess we can still make that work. One way or another. Basically a matter of, do you steal the flanking from the Alba Pikeman or from the Catriona? It is kind of nice to keep it behind our defender. Yeah, it probably would have been better to put it in one of those spots, but alas. Either way, should be doing pretty okay here. I tell you what, probably would have preferred to have just locked Keldar immediately. Now, sure, we'll remove you. So that is the thing that the Catriona is not great at doing. And you see they're not even going after the Catriona here. Vesemir, yes, they have some additional Witchers on the board, so decent point slam. Yeah, now you're just going to lock yourself. So that makes Keldar the most intriguing target. So we go Catriona for the initial poison, and Philippe finishes it off. And they will forfeit. Alright, so going up against Nilfgaard here. And they'll go first. Okay, and we have Ard Feainn in hand. Never want to have that, so let's get rid of it. We do have some very big cards like Emhyr, the Admiral, and the Catriona. A lot of bronzes as well, though. I think let's get rid of the Turncoat, although there is certainly some synergy potential with Emhyr. Okay, Rune Mage, they can be Assimilate. I mean, Rune Mage could be in any deck, right? Imperial Practitioner is an Assimilate card, so if they weren't Assimilate before, they at least have some Assimilate now. So we could lock that, and that might even be worth doing right off the bat here. And if we are thinking we're committing Emhyr in this round, then we could use him and get the Moorlehem Hunter out on the same turn. That feels like a bit of overkill, though, so let's go just the Hunter initially. Alright, Imperial Marine. Don't think we drew into ours, but we could block that. Actually, the card that they chose apparently is already at the top of their deck, because they got 2 boosts from that. So I think it might be worth either poisoning you, maybe creating a copy with our Cadavarine, or we could even transfer over the status and then remove with Vanhemar. That might even be better still. Okay, Vigo. Right, so now it's looking a lot like an Assimilate deck. That stinks. So we very much were planning to remove on this turn with Vanhemar. Technically, we could still get Lock if we went with either Leader ability or the Admiral. That is obviously a pretty big commitment, but they've put up a decent number of points here, so that might even be necessary. I think we're actually going to go for it. Get out Ard Feainn as well. Okay, so first it's Lock. Let's lock you. Then it is Poison. I think we'll probably poison Vigo. And then it's Spying. I guess we'll go Spying on the Rune Mage. That part's not as necessary. Now, if they have additional Purification, then this starts to become much, much trickier. they're going to lock our Admiral instead. And yes, he was an engine, but in many ways, we were playing him more for his statuses, because now we can follow up with Vanhemar to remove you. And if we want to, we could also go Cadavarine to finish you off with poison. Let's, I guess, see what we get here first. Okay, none of these are particularly helpful. I think we'll probably get rid of the Pellar, just put him at the bottom of our deck. Because yes, they do have some statuses, but that's not going to help us in the immediate future. So let's go Vanhemar here. Get rid of you. Okay, War Council. We'll give them... Oh, shoot, stay off. Didn't see that one coming. Oh, wow. Wait, did they... Went for the artifact. I'm surprised. They prioritized going after Ard Feainn like that. I assumed they were going to go after one of our units. And even that, I was going to say, you know, at best, it's 5 points. But I am leaning more and more toward Cadavarine on Vigo here, I think. And the earlier we do that, the better, because he is an engine. Both for them and for us. Now, he is, of course, starting at just 2 base power, so he's very much a card they could answer. And we don't really have any ways to boost him up. Unless we were to use our defender, technically would give him 1 point boost. Alright, they'll get rid of him. Pretty good Mage Infiltrator play there. Now, I think what we'll do is we'll go Alba Pikeman, and that gives us some potential for bleed. It's obviously a little later in the round than we'd like to be playing an engine like that, but if this round does continue to go even longer, it is also set up for the Catriona. Okay, like on you, for example. Granted, we no longer have a finishing source of poison now that we've used Cadavarine, so that does make things awfully tricky here. Ffion is a bit of a point slam, so near the end of the round, that is arguably our best choice. Don't really want to play our second Alba Pikeman, and Emhyr would give us our second Alba Pikeman. Catriona, as I said, at this point is really not that effective. I think it has to be Ffion. And then we just give some statuses. I'm going to give 2 bleeds to you. Because if we are going to use the Catriona, which again, I really don't want to, at least that means we get the bleed on this guy. Alright, Alyssa. Can we tell what they're going for? Shoop, stay off. Oh man, they are a dedicated Shoop deck. But now this is the tough part, is if we want to try to win this round, which we could technically try to do, it would mean probably going Emhyr way later than we want to be using him and getting Alba Pikeman on the board. I mean, it is 8 points in 1 turn, and if the round goes slightly longer, we do have another Alba Pikeman on the board. We will draw into something from Emhyr, but that's a lot of cards used that we really wanted to save, and that does not feel good. But I guess we will do it. There's a finishing poison, which is intriguing. Because now that means the Catriona is actually possible to do some things here. So we suddenly could go full length round 1 if we absolutely need to. Their last few cards, they have Roderick. They'll use to get Uma's Curse, but we've gotten rid of all their Assimilate cards, right? This will not give them any additional value. It's just all about whatever random card they get. And they're going to go Vitality to cancel out the bleed. That might be what they do. It is. Okay, so now I think we do use the Catriona, and with that, we technically don't even need it to be in flanking position. We probably should still put it behind the defender just to play it safe, but 1 poison from you on this, and then finish the round with Fangs the Empire, that's the plan. Technically, just putting this body on the board is probably enough, especially if we complement that with a little more bleed damage. But this is, of course, another fairly big card we are using in round 1, in what is turning out to be a much longer round 1 than we were really hoping to find ourselves in. Now, there's a chance that they don't want to play that last card, and if so, then suddenly we're winning on even. Maybe that makes everything worth it. Pellar purifies, but we're going to have more bleed from the Alba Pikeman, which means we do have setup for the Catriona. They will use Battle Preparation. Okay, and I think we do have everything it takes to win on even here. In fact, just the body plus the bleed is sufficient, but just to show you what I had in mind, at least 1 bleed means we can then put the poison on you, which means we can then remove you, and then, you know, do whatever you want with the other stuff. lead doesn't really matter at this point for damage purposes because they aren't going to take another turn in this round. We'll win on even. So we could dry pass. They'd have to play a card to win this round, and then we'd have card advantage and double last say in round 3, especially in a short round. That is pretty significant, so that is tempting. Do we have firepower remaining, though? Because we used a whole lot of it in round 1, and if we get some really good stuff, we could potentially try to push aggressively in round 2. Now, the Imperial Marine is kind of interesting because it could give us a way to put Masquerade Ball at the top of our deck, or otherwise Battle Stations would probably be our preference because we have a lot of bronzes left. Even if we do get Masquerade Ball, we need to make sure we have one additional aristocrat to go along with Philippe. I think we probably do still need to pass here. There's just not quite enough to work around. They'll go Nazca Sergeant, okay. Solid point slam. And potentially a target for us to try to remove if they do have another one for round 3. Okay, there is Masquerade Ball, there is Battle Stations. So we only have one aristocrat at the moment. However, if we use Battle Stations, we'll draw into 2 more cards, and that gives us a decent chance here. Now, I don't love the Turncoat without the support of Emhyr, so let's dump you. The poison isn't bad. Technically, Imperial Marine, we do have card draw with Battle Stations, so that's not out of the question, but I think we tried dumping you. And the Servants, well, that doesn't really help us all that much. Okay, so they'll go Ffion. Now, technically, that is a relatively easy target to get rid of with Philippe. We could create a copy of you with our leader ability to get a defender on our own side, but since your base power is 1, it's not great. So I think what we do here is we might even want to play Masquerade Ball first. That way, if they leader ability early, they aren't going to steal this, because that could backfire on us pretty badly. This will also get a unit on the board, valuable unit at that, so that if we use the Imperial Marine, we can get that in flanking position early, which I think we may want to do, because that means that we can hopefully get another Thristy Dame up near the top of our deck. Okay, do they get the artifact destruction? Okay, they do. Obviously very valuable, but the Thristy Dame is a big deal. I think they're using leader ability here, and that is one of the reasons why we played Masquerade Ball as early as we did. Philippe was definitely the best card they could have gotten. And they're... Oh, in fact, they had already played a Rune Mage, so yeah, they saw everything in our hand. I mean, technically, I guess we don't need a Thristy Dame anymore, because we don't need a second aristocrat to trigger Masquerade Ball, so maybe for that reason we do go straight into Philippe. And we do have Zeal, because we do already have an aristocrat, or rather a vampire on the board. Now, again, there's a case to be made for stacking everyone in this row and maybe even using our Imposter to get our own Ffion, but that's just a little riskier than I'd like to be playing right now. Vigo, didn't they play one in round 1? Where are they getting this one from? Okay, now we do not have Purification, unless we get Battle Stations into a Pellar. Now, I'm pretty sure we put at least one of these at the bottom of our deck. We might have mulliganed the other one. There is a chance we'll get this. And either way, I think it is probably still best to Battle Stations here, unless, let's see, Philippe will lock Thristy Dame on this turn, unless we do use leader ability to get our own defender. Then we at least slow them down. Yeah, I tell you what, I think that was worth doing earlier. That way we could have gotten a turn of poison from Philippe, and then Fangs the Empire finishes you off. So I think we do actually need to do this. Having done it a little bit earlier would have been preferable. Now we go here, we do this, and we do this. Okay, get you here, get you here. For you, I mean, I don't think it matters anymore, right? Because we just did our only thing that was going to give us card draw, but apparently that card is, at least now, at the top of our deck, so this actually might be our best engine at this point. Okay, teleportation is to replay you. You're going to lock Ffion so you can get to poison more quickly. So now we go King Cobra, we can remove you. We can do that whenever, though. Technically speaking, oh, I was gonna say, that was actually pretty important that you were in that row, because I was gonna say you go Thristy Dame and then the Servant to transfer over 3 statuses onto that Van Moorlehem Hunter, and that would have been a decent boost for the Thristy Dame. Yeah, we do still have this one here, but more importantly, I mean, this isn't getting boosted either unless they have a target we can actually access for Van Moorlehem Servant. So maybe, yeah, maybe that does mean that it ought to be you next. And we can, I guess, at least copy Doomed. So we have something to do there. And this is their last play. And it's Elf and Onion Soup, which is questionable. So they have to sacrifice 2 cards to make it happen. Remember, we won on even in round 1. So we had card advantage and double last say, as we're seeing here. it's going to be enough to remove you. But we already have the win here with 2 cards to spare, so not an issue. Alright, so going up against Nilfgaard here, and they'll go first. Okay, so Ard Feainn in hand, definitely don't want to have that. Then they might also be a very status-oriented deck, so usually these Pellars are for getting rid of units that have Veil, but it might be to help ourselves out. We do have Masquerade Ball and Battle Stations, so this is mostly just to spam a bunch of bronzes in. Where I was going with that is, we have a bunch of bronzes, not a lot of golds right now. So maybe it is still worth getting rid of one of these Pellars. And, well, the Turncoat is... it's not exactly what I was looking for here. Okay, but they're starting off with soldiers. Okay, well, they do have the Crystal Skull. Still a little questionable to go melee row. I mean, technically that is going to activate immediately, I suppose, so that is something. In fact, tell you what, I think we might even Pellar turn 1 here. Purify, and then it should, I believe, still end up locking itself and shutting itself down immediately, which is kind of the whole point of their strategy, was to avoid having that happen. There we go. Okay, Sheilard is not that impactful. Sure, it drops you down a little bit. In fact, that might even be the next card we want to play. Could go Battle Stations. If we were to do that, what, we'd go Thristy Dame maybe along with the Marine? No, maybe you do this on a later occasion to go Thristy Dame plus Van Moorlehem Servant so that you can get the Thristy Dame boosted up immediately. Why don't we do this? We're just gonna... I know it's weak at the moment, but we do this to make sure that we can more easily get some of our key cards, like Emhyr, the Admiral, Philippe, cards that we unfortunately did not yet see. So what do we want to prioritize? I think it might be Emhyr because he does have some card draw, potentially at least. So that could help us get more of those key cards. Alright, Oniro. They can certainly mess with this if they want to. They're going to go Masquerade Ball. Okay. So yeah, it does look like it's going to be a pretty similar matchup here. Tricky thing with playing Masquerade Ball this early, especially when we have really weak stuff on the board, is they're potentially going to get forced into using poison to remove a card that is not that valuable. And especially if we were to Van Moorlehem Servants to lock you, then suddenly they are not getting much benefit out of this. So I think we will probably do just that. It's not a dramatic play. It's mostly to slow them down. Obviously, if we had gotten Thristy Dame down first, or if we'd gone Thristy Dame and then Van Moorlehem Servant, it would have been a little bit more dramatic, but deliberately did not do that because if we were to play Thristy Dame, then that would become the target of their poison. And now they're going to have to settle for a 5-point Van Moorlehem Servant instead. So we could... I don't have enough Aristocrats to trigger both rounds of Masquerade Ball, unless Battle Stations helps us out there. And if we delay this a little bit more, we are getting the Imperial Marine moving up Emhyr in our deck, so longer we wait, the more likely that this will draw us into Emhyr. But I'm still not convinced that's something we want to do in this round. And if that is the case, then are we just passing here? I mean, I don't really love that idea either. We'll go Turncoat. And we'll give you Spying in large part just because you have the most power, so there's the most potential to deal damage to you. Because if they want to pass now, we can still catch them in 2 cards, I have to imagine. Certainly if we Battle Stations, we can do it. And then they've wasted Masquerade Ball entirely. So what's the most efficient way to do this? We might have to go Thristy Dame here and just rely on us drawing into Gold Aristocrats later on. So, or even do the Battle Stations here and go Thristy Dame first and then the Servant. And we do this. And we do that. And then that. And that means that we have won round 1, even though they played Masquerade Ball. And we now know that Emhyr is at the top of our deck as well. Not only Emhyr, but Philippe as well. And playing either of those will get out Ard Feainn. We definitely still want to have that hanging out in our deck. Okay, now this is something looking very good. So by winning round 1 with a whole bunch of bronzes, that means we have a whole lot of firepower remaining. We do still have 1 throwaway card here. Not exactly sure how we want to approach that situation, because obviously playing any of these guys is a pretty big commitment. Maybe we dump the Hunter, who we no longer have a huge need for since we do already have a lot of Aristocrats. I mean, this is also really good synergistically. I mean, you're really the most throwaway card that we have here. So do we just use you and play for the long round 3. I mean, we have so much firepower here. It's basically a perfect round 3 hand. I think we might still go that route. And they'll commit Defender. Okay, I don't know why you're committing Defender turn 1 when we have made it pretty clear that we're just using a throwaway. Why else would we use a deploy ability that does not activate here? But works for us. All right, now we draw into the Admiral and also Thristy Dame. Pellar, I mean, we saw it was useful in round 1 because they had some Veil. There's a chance they might have more, but I'm kind of doubtful. I think much more likely they're going to use their own statuses, like Poison, like Lock, to try to shut us down. We do have a Defender. I think they will break through that pretty quickly. So how important is Pellar to us? I don't know. I guess second Alba Pikeman might be the next best option. Or Vanhemar? Okay. Maybe we'll stick with this then. Alright, they'll go Emhyr first. Now we could Cadavarine Emhyr to get an extra copy of him, which is pretty tempting, or even Imposter him. In fact, I think that is almost certainly the right choice here. Let's do this. Now, it does mean they don't have a lot of statuses, any statuses yet on their side of the board, so the boost is not going to be huge. But to have an extra Emhyr is pretty nice, and then we can protect him behind Ffion, which was otherwise going to be my first turn play. Now, as I was saying, I do expect Fion's going to be answered very quickly here, because presumably they have a lot more statuses as well, but that might at least make it a little bit safer for us to play Masquerade Ball on our next turn and potentially dodge a Heat Wave. Okay, there's Vincent. He's going to remove the Defender. Like I said, expected to see that. They'll lock Ard Emhyr, but of course we have another Emhyr, our original one, still in hand. So we'll try breaking this out now. Of course, they might Heat Wave it, but even if they do, we still have a lot of poison left, and we have a Thristy Dame in our hand as well. Alright, Pellar, okay, interesting, gonna purify their Emhyr. Gonna lock our Thristy Dame. Well, I have news for you. I'm afraid we're about to get Emhyr back, and probably with him play a Thristy Dame as well, and immediately remove Emhyr, or might even be Thristy Dame, with poison. I mean, do we think they have Coup or a Terra Nova? Because if so, we still care about the spying status. If not, then getting rid of the Thristy Dame means that the spying status might not mean much. Maybe we'll take that chance and actually go after Thristy Dame instead. So let's do this. Okay, we draw into the other Alba Pikeman, which is incredible. And we're going to get both of these on the same turn. And then do that while we're at it. Alright, Ox. Who's he locking? Emhyr. Alright, fair enough. So what is our next highest priority? It's probably going to be Philippe, Catriona, the Admiral, the Pikeman, all these things incredibly useful for us. We want to make sure we still have room for both Alba Pikemen, in fact. Forgot we had 2 of them. And, well, maybe they realize that it's going to be pretty hard to catch us at this point, and so they forfeit. So there's a look at an improved version of a Nilfgaard status deck for Standard. If you liked the video, then make sure to hit the like and subscribe button, and leave a comment down below to let me know which other cards, archetypes, and factions we should experiment with next. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you next time.